I'll give the floor to Pakistan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I'd like to commend you and the Chinese delegation on your skillful leadership of the Security Council during this month's presidency and for convening this important briefing today. I would also like to express my gratitude to Under Secretary General Vladimir Voronkov and Assistant Secretary General and Executive Director of CTED, Ms. Natalia German, for their thoughtful remarks. We take note of the 20th report of the Secretary General on the threat posed by Daesh to international peace and security. We also take note of the 35th report of the monitoring team for the 1267 ISIL-Daesh and Al-Qaeda Sanctions Committee. Mr. President, Pakistan condemns terrorism in all its forms and manifestations. For more than 4 decades, we have remained at the forefront of global counter-terrorism efforts and been a principal target of terrorist attacks, financed by our adversaries in the region, and we have paid a heavy price in innocent lives lost, 80,000 casualties, and enormous damage to our economy. Mr. President, the global terrorism landscape has evolved significantly since the adoption of UN Security Council Resolution 1373. Terrorist attacks have increased globally, especially across the Middle East, Africa, and in and from Afghanistan. While Al-Qaeda core was decimated in Afghanistan, largely, I may mention, due to Pakistan's efforts, several of Al-Qaeda's subsidiaries have emerged elsewhere, including in North Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa. Daesh was suppressed in Syria and Iraq, but the franchises have also emerged in Afghanistan and in the Sahel. As noted in the Secretary General's report, the threat posed by Daesh and their affiliates is undiminished, and they remain resilient and adaptable to counter-terrorism pressure. Mr. President, the international community must address the terrorist threat together through a comprehensive, coordinated, and principled strategy based upon the Global Counterterrorism Strategy, the GCTS, adopted by the General Assembly. I would like to make the following suggestions in this regard. 1. We need a more effective response to the current and escalating threats of terrorism. We discussed the response to the complex challenges of terrorism in Africa a week ago. Mention has been made in this debate on the situation in Syria. We must sincerely address the terrorist threats from Afghanistan. After successfully decimating Al-Qaeda and other terrorist groups within our borders, I like to repeat that, within our borders, Pakistan continues to confront terrorist threats such as the TTP, Daesh, and the Majeed Brigade, operating from safe havens across our borders. We are concerned that while mention is made of Daesh, the threat that is posed to Pakistan by the TTP and by the Majeed Brigade have not been mentioned by our colleagues around the table. Mr. President, there are over 24 terrorist groups operating inside Afghanistan. Also, the main hub for ISIL-K's recruitment and facilitation, as confirmed by the monitoring team's report. And I would like to repeat that. Afghanistan is the main hub of recruitment of ISIL-Daesh, and we reject any imputation that there is any such recruitment in Pakistan. We are fighting Daesh, we are fighting TTP, we are fighting the Majeed Brigade, and we will continue to do so with determination. This threat of Daesh, TTP, Majeed Brigade, is a threat not only to Afghanistan, not only to Pakistan, but to the entire region and beyond. Those responsible for this situation must take these assessments into account, and the scale of the threat posed by these terrorist groups and their affiliates, which are well documented in the reports of the Secretary General and the monitoring team reports, must be responded to. The Council must act on these assessments. Pakistan has adopted a comprehensive national counterterrorism strategy to eliminate the threat of terrorism from across the borders. 2, we must address the root causes of terrorism that include poverty, injustice, and prolonged unresolved conflicts, foreign occupation, and the denial of the right to self-determination to peoples under colonial and foreign domination and alien rule, such as the occupied territories of Palestine and Jammu and Kashmir. Without addressing the root causes, we can hope for little success if our focus remains restricted to the consequences of such policies. 3, the necessary changes are needed in the UN's counterterrorism architecture and sanctions regimes to ensure that they are adequately equipped to respond to the current challenges and represent a fair, just, and comprehensive mechanism. Pakistan also supports the Office of the Ombudsperson and advocates strengthening its operational capability and effectiveness. 4, we are concerned about the use of new technologies, including ICTs, by terrorists to organize online and collaborate with transnational criminal networks to recruit and finance their activities. We must address the new cyber tools of terrorism, including the dark web and cryptocurrencies, which are being utilized increasingly for radicalization campaigns, incitement to violence, terror financing, propaganda, and disinformation through the social media. 5, terrorism continues to mutate into various new forms that are not being effectively addressed. To comprehensively defeat terrorism, we must address the new and emerging forms of terrorism, including violent acts by white supremacists, far-right extremists, violent nationalist, fascist, xenophobic, Islamophobic, and anti-Muslim groups, and similar ideologies in various parts of the world. 6, it is our collective responsibility to ensure that counterterrorism efforts around the world are not misused to violate human rights and international humanitarian law. There must be accountability for the violation of fundamental human rights, especially the right to self-determination and in situations of foreign occupation. 7, the international community has failed to address state terrorism, including the use of state power to suppress legitimate struggles for self-determination or to continue foreign occupation, which are amongst its worst manifestations, and the state sponsorship of terrorism in other countries is also unaddressed. 8, despite protestations to the contrary, counter-terrorism policies have so far singled out only one religion, Islam, for affiliation with terrorism and extremism. Such concepts that stigmatize Muslims have fanned the flames of Islamophobia and fueled further radicalization. Mr. President, these gaps in the UN's counter-terrorism efforts need to be addressed, and it is for this reason that Pakistan believes that the UN General Assembly should establish a subsidiary body to promote the universal consideration and balanced implementation of all 4 pillars of the global counterterrorism strategy, with the vital support of the United Nations Office of Counterterrorism as its executing arm. We will explore this proposal in consultation with all interested member states and Mr. Vladimir Voronkov. Thank you.
I thank the representative of Pakistan.